주랑 속이 적남라 장추 버드다 캡수지 다기 중엔 기대 소남기 그롤라 펜치 성게 주바쇼 주랑 속이 적남라 장추 버드다니 캡수지 다기 중엔 기대 소남기 그롤라 펜치 성게 주바쇼 주랑 속이 적남라 장추 버드다니 캡수지 다기 중엔 기대 소남기 드롤라 펜치 성게 주파쇼.
So please sit comfortably for a little bit of breathing meditation to help shift our mind from the busyness and activity of the day to a more neutral space. Sit with your spine and torso comfortably straight. Eyes gently closed, breathing through the nostrils. And just be aware of the sensation of air passing the tips of your nostrils. Just count your cycles of breathing, one exhalation and one inhalation as one round. And count 21 rounds, just focusing on the air of the nostrils. In your mind, you can make a prayer or an aspiration to request blessings or help from holy beings to understand these difficult Lojong teachings. Again, visualize or feel a holy being blessing you in your mind stream and your capacity. And just feel them close to you. You can visualize them at the crown of your head or feel them close to you, beside you, next to you. Oh, homage to all holy beings everywhere. Thank you for coming. Nice to see you. Looks like our days are numbered with a for sale sign on the building, huh? You noticed it on the way in, I saw it.
It's very expensive.
Oh, is it?
Overpriced.
It's not going to sell. Oh, we got time.
I got a little time.
I didn't even see that. It's real?
Yeah. All composed phenomena come to an end, right?
Is that the end of time?
The end of the visuals meeting? No. Well, you know, if we're lucky, because they're overpriced, we get to finish this course and maybe do course 15 as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You think we got time?
I think so, yes.
And what's typical close time on a building? A couple of months?
Yeah.
Did you look
At least.
Did you look at
At least
Yeah.
a couple months.
Yeah. 15.
15 is supposed to start basically once this ends, right?
Yeah, this course 14, we're in the middle of this course now. And so, I figure we've got, what, 6 weeks left, something like that? I don't know the dates offhand. And then, Holy Lady is going to come and teach course 15, which is something like mid-May, right? What we said? I don't remember what the dates were. Steve, do you remember?
Yeah, somewhere around May.
It's like mid-May, and she's going to teach straight through. She's on break, so she's going to teach straight through on the way to India. So it'll be, I don't know what it is, like 2 full weekends and a couple of nights. So you have to, you should look at the dates and think about your schedule, because she's going to blast it out in a pretty concentrated fashion. So you want to save the dates if you're planning on doing it. Okay. Let's see where we are. Are the lights up all the way by any chance? It's just the artistic effect. I think it's just the, yeah, that's all of it, right? All right.
Oh yeah, it's because the lights are moved.
I don't know the stick
That's all
one.
right.
For what?
The light and
For what?
It's okay.
this light is usually pointing down.
Yeah, that's why. It looks different.
That's okay. So, we've been going through a series of lojongs, right? And the most recent one that we've done is, do you remember what it's called?
7.0.
Yeah, 7-point, Lojong Duma, 7-point instruction on how to develop a good heart, right? And we've gone through the first, 4 points, 4 points, right? We're on point number 4 right now. We're going to do point 4 and 5 tonight. Okay. And it's a little bit sexy. Part 4 is called Summary of an Entire Lifetime's Practice. And these are instructions that you can apply your entire life. That's sort of essential instructions to apply throughout your life. And at the end of this particular step in the Lojong, then they go into this sort of this teaching on Poa. And, if you want to get a lot of people to attend, you advertise your teaching Poa. which is transference of consciousness at the time of death, and then everybody thinks it's really sexy and they show up and then you teach long rem or something like that, right? So it's a very secret practice in our Vajrayogini lineage, but in this sutra teaching, in this open teaching of Lojong, it's taught clearly and openly, and so it's legitimate to cover it. So we can teach it without initiation in a direct way. So please say poa.
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 Poa means to move or relocate your consciousness, like moving house. You know, your consciousness is here, housed in this body, and then Poa practice you relocate to another facility, as it were. So, you know, for example, if you found out, if you were an advanced practitioner and you found out that you had a very serious illness and you were going to die, then you would prepare for death by intentionally consciously transferring your consciousness in a controlled way before you die. So you deliver your consciousness, or you send your consciousness into death, and that's the idea of Poa. So in the old days in Tibet, before they had, you know, CAT scans and whatnot, there were practices they did to get a read on how long their life was and whether they were imminently going to expire. You know, if they had the indications that they were going to have a very short lifespan left, and they might do a Poa practice to have a controlled rebirth, or to have fortunate circumstances for to continue their practice. So so normally it's a secret practice, but here in this 7-point Lojong, they teach it openly, and they do teach it openly, and they say this is the most powerful one that you can teach. So they teach that Poa at the end of this bit, and we have to do some other material first before we go into that. So there are 5 steps that we have to do before we, according to Lojong, there are 5 steps that we have to engage in before practicing Poa, and so we're going to cover those, right? And so these are called Topna. Please say Topna. Top is power and Na is fire. So these are 5 powers. Okay. And the first is, please say Pempa. Kitop. So what was Top?
Power.
You're listening, good. And Gi is and Pempa means to project, or to throw something. It's like you're going to throw something forward or project something forward. That's what Tempa means. And so what this is referring to is in the morning when you wake up, before you get out of bed, there's a particular practice that you engage in. Right? So you wake up, you're lying there. And even before you open your eyes, you engage in this practice, and you project forward, and you think about the day, you think about the future, and you think, how am I getting out of bed? Sounds like a profound practice, right? Like, why am I getting out of bed? It's not very profound. It's like a normal question in the morning, right? It's like, what the hell am I doing getting out of bed today? What's for? Right? What's going to happen today that's going to make it worth it, or that's going to be interesting, or that's that's relevant to me? I mean, a lot of people get out of bed because they want to get something. I want to go to work, I want to get money, I want to get stuff, I want to accomplish something, right? So, but in this practice, you decide what you're going to do throughout for the day. You think about the day, and you think, what am I going to do with this day? What is the focus of today? What's the point of today? It's like making a resolution for the future. And when you're lying there in bed, you think of it as resolution for the day, or for the month, or for the year, or for your lifetime. It really doesn't matter. So you're just there with your eyes closed, and you think, I'm not going to waste today. You just think, what am I going to do when I get out of bed? I'm not going to waste the day. I want to use the day in the best way possible. So, an ordinary day, the point is fairly mundane, right? I got to go work. I got to get some money. I'm going to socialize. I'm going to entertain myself. I'm going to run here and there and do some chores and some errands. So, it can be fairly uninspiring, right? From the perspective of this practice, this Lojong practice, the point of step number 1 is to reflect upon how you're going to think throughout the day and how you're going to behave throughout the day, which is that you're going to engage in lojong. You're going to do what? What would you guess it is? I mean, what's the main point of lojong? All the
Take care
lojongs.
of others.
Yeah, you think of other people first, right? I mean, all the lojongs we've studied, the point is to think of others first and to care for others first, right? So, the idea is when you're lying in bed there, you think, you know what? Today I'm not going to look out for myself before everybody else. Today is not about looking out for number one, right? Most of my days and most of my life, I get up and I think about what can I get for myself and what can I do and how can I advance myself, and not much thought and effort and energy goes into thinking about other people, right? And what their needs are and how to care for them and how to be loving and compassionate and kind to them. So the world we live in now, according to Buddhism, the world that we live in now, the sufferings of this world, the problems of this world, and the reason that this world is broken is because everyone's looking out for themselves at everyone else's expense, right? Buddhism says that all the problems of the world and all the suffering of the world come from the mistake of looking out for ourselves first at the expense of everyone else, right? And Buddhism says that if you continue to live like this, life will never go right. Life will always be filled with problems and sufferings. So if your spiritual practice was good, if our practice of caring for others and being compassionate to others and thinking of others primarily throughout the day, if we were practicing well in that way, that our life would be quite happy and quite sweet, and we would be physically and mentally in good shape, and that if we are not, then it's a sign that we're mainly thinking of ourselves, right? And if we were living a compassionate, really spiritual life, that would be evidenced by a very sweet life in a very sweet world. So, getting older, having a body with aches and pains and sufferings is a sign of not being compassionate. I mean, like if you look at Paul, he looks like he's getting younger and younger all the time. You know, it's like, you know, you see him like a couple of years ago, you know, he was like
An old man.
He's like, yeah, he was much older looking, right? So his practice is definitely improving his circumstance, right? So according to Buddhism, you know, one can reverse one's physical suffering, one's mental suffering, and the deteriorating state of one's mind and body. And the key is to stop worrying about ourselves and to start being concerned about other people, right? And it's, according to Buddhism, it's extremely rare to find someone who's really living fully this way. I mean, if I look at my life, I'm not. You know, most of the people I know are not. So it's a rare thing. So if one really were doing that, one would have a sweeter and sweeter life and begin to enter into a more sacred life, into a more sacred realm. And this is in fact how one becomes enlightened in one lifetime. We spent all these years thinking about, number one, thinking about ourselves first, right? I mean, for me, it's, 40, 50 years of thinking about myself first, mostly. I mean, some moderating influences from the Dharma, but mostly thinking about myself first. And I think it's typical. And you could say, look, all the problems of the world that we've experienced and encountered come from this. I mean, maybe you don't believe it, maybe you do, but you could say life has been a roller coaster and a series of ups and downs for decades, right? And Buddhism says, look, if you stop thinking of yourself and stop putting yourself first and you put others first, your life will improve. And so, really, what have you got to lose? You got decades of history of life being one way, and give it six weeks or 6 months of being focused on others and what their needs are, and see what it does. See what impact it has on life, right? So. This idea is actually central and is the most important idea that one can practice almost. This concept of putting others before ourselves is really deadly serious. It's not just sort of a nice idea. It's like figuring out who the true enemy is. It's like being at war and figuring out who the true enemy is, and then saying, oh, finally I realized that the true enemy is me and my selfish behavior. And then realizing that you have to stop that enemy and you have to put an end to that enemy, bless you, and that you have to wake up to that fact, into that realization, and that really our life is at stake. The happiness of our lives or the suffering of our lives hangs in the balance, and the fact of our enlightenment or continued suffering existence, life after life, is in the balance. So the reason to be in these classes is to get out of the suffering realm and to get into enlightenment. It's not just for sort of interest or social dating or whatever it might be, right? The only thing that stands between us and our enlightenment is our tendency to think of ourselves first and put ourselves in front of other people, right? I mean, you cannot get enlightened if you're always looking out for number one instead of other people. It's impossible. And the thing that will lead to enlightenment is overcoming that impulse and always putting others first, right? I mean, you got to ask, is it really that simple, right? I mean, is it really that simple that if I just always think about others and care for others, that I become enlightened? Yeah, in fact, it is that simple. It's hard to do. I mean, if we watch our behavior throughout the day, right? Just kind of check in and think about our behavior today. How many times today were we thinking about someone else and let me look after their needs, let me look after their well-being? And you see it in every impulse. If you're driving, you're like, oh, that person wants to cut in front of me, I'm not going to let them cut in front of me. If you're in the subway, that person wants the seat and I want the seat, or they want to get in through the doors first, or I want to get in through the doors first, or someone cut me off on the stairs and feeling irritated and annoyed that they did that. So there's endless impulses through all these mundane interactions that we have, of feeling annoyed and irritated and upset with people because they somehow put themselves before us and think they're more important than us, right? When in fact, according to Buddhism, we should be happily accommodating that. It should be like, oh, okay, you want to go in front of me, go in front of me. I'm happy to wait a moment and let you go because I want your well-being and I want your happiness, right? I mean, it sounds very stupid. It sounds very simple. It sounds very simple and mundane, right? It's actually very profound. That it's the key to every happiness and the key to enlightenment. So anyway. When you wake up, you have to feel that today I'm going to devote my day to overcoming this tendency, right? This tendency to always put myself first. And this state of mind has created so much misery for me and so much misery for everyone else, and I'm going to stop it. And that's the point of my day today, and that's why I'm getting out of bed today. I'm getting out of bed today, to help and be considerate of and kind towards every single person that I meet and every single person that I run into, right? So it's a single state of mind that one cultivates while we're still lying in bed in the morning, right? Sort of setting the intention. So every morning you wake up and you think like, you know what? This attitude is causing me to suffer and die, and I'm going to stop it. I'm not going to perpetuate this behavior. So I don't want to live like that. So it's like I'm getting out of, I don't want to get out of bed and just chase after things for myself. I want to get out of bed and think about everybody else and what I can do for everybody else and how I can help everybody else. So that's the first of the 5 powers. All right. Second, please say kompa. Gito. So kompa is habituation, and what's to? I heard it.
Power.
Power. Thank you. Power of habituation. Okay. So getting used to something. Habituation is just making something a habit, right? I mean, it's one thing to think, oh, I want to do that, but it's another thing to actually have the habit of doing it, right? I mean, it's very easy to say, oh, I want to be a good person, I want to be a kind person, I'm going to be polite all the time. But then to actually do it is a different matter, right? Like when our normal reflexes and habits arise, we just impulsively spew whatever comes. And so changing our behavior and re-habituating our behavior is a whole other story, right? So this second power is getting used to what we just talked about. When lying there in bed and you set the intention, you set your clear understanding of how you're going to go through the day, but then you got to go through the day, right? I mean, it's one thing to lie in bed and say, oh yeah, when I get out of bed, the reason I'm getting out of bed is to be kind and loving to everyone and to help everyone. But then you get out of bed, right? And then you're your roommate, your partner, whomever, and they're like, you know, they spill food all over the breakfast food all over the place, and it's annoying, and you know, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, as you go through the day, right? You know, somebody's left their dog waste there, right in the middle of the, you know, the sidewalk, right in front of you. You know, and you get annoyed, and so all these endless things. So. So the first one is while you're in bed, and the second one is once you're out of bed, okay? Carrying these thoughts throughout the day and thinking like that throughout the day. So they say that, the Kadampas say that the way to check yourself is to check in every time you change position, right? So we're constantly moving, right? So we go from standing to sitting, or standing to walking, or sitting to lying, right? So they say every time you change physical positions, train yourself to check in and see if you have this attitude. So every time you transition from one position, physical position, to another, see what your attitude is and see what you're thinking. Right? It's tying it into physical activity to remember and to make it clear and to bring it to the forefront of your mind. Right? So they connect it to the 4 stations of the body, and they use the time throughout the day to fight this enemy. Right? I mean, today I was sitting there listening to someone. To be careful on tape. Today I was sitting there listening to someone, and I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, this is so boring. You know, how long is this going to go on? Because I go, oh Jesus, I'm so bored. And then I kind of went, oh yeah, oh wait a minute, I'm thinking about myself, right? Oh, what about them? I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm sitting. I'm like, oh, this thing. Think about the other person. And then I'm like, oh, okay, let me change my perspective. Let me change my view. And it shifted the whole thing, you see. It's a very different mindset. I mean, you know, how does it feel when you're sitting there going like, oh, this really sucks. I'm really bored. This is really not be doing this. You know, this is really like, you know, what's this person doing, right? Whether it's work or home or anything else. I mean, it's unpleasant, right? Internally. And then it has an effect on your mind and body when you think that way. Your subtle body. And so, you know, when you shift that perspective and you think positively and you generate positive thoughts, it also has an effect on the mind and body and energetic system, right? And has a very pronounced effect on the system. So every change in location is supposed to set off those thoughts, right? Thinking about what other people want and worrying less about what I want. Yeah. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, please say Karpo.
Karpo.
Sabun.
Sabun.
Gito.
Gito.
What's to?
Power.
Yes, thank you. Sabun means seed, like a karmic seed or a mental seed. Sorry, Karpo means virtue, like Sabun means seed. Is that what I said? I said Sabun means seed. I lost track of what I said. Anyway, Sabun means seed. Karpa means virtue or white seed. Okay, so this is the force of pure white seeds. And now, what do they mean by this force of pure white seeds? It refers to 2 practices involving seeds and pure seeds. So the reason that we're getting old, the reason that we're suffering, the reason that we're dying, is because every time we have a negative thought or a bad thought about someone else, from the slightest moment's irritation about someone walking in front of us to, you know, really getting angry, it has an effect on our subtle body and our energetic system, and it causes it to actually constrict, and it causes blockages in our subtle body and the channels, so that there's a corresponding outer impact of the body, the physical body, suffering, you know, creating suffering in the outer physical body. So literally every thought that we have causes additional constrictions in the subtle energetic body. And the converse of that is every virtuous thought that we have, every white thought that we have, causes the constrictions and knots and blockages in our subtle body to open up and to allow energies to flow in a way which is sort of pure. Yeah.
I just had like a personal thought when you were talking about I have a younger brother who's going through puberty right now. We seem to talk about this in the context of like we're already adults and then we're like fearing death the whole time and like the decay of our bodies, but like could this could growing
Could you like tone down your brother in puberty?
well like keep him at 12, yeah. Like could these also be the cause of growth from you know, being a baby or a toddler into childhood and adulthood? Is that kind of also how it works?
You know, Buddhism would not say that positive thoughts and virtuous thoughts cause us to grow and age into maturity. From a Buddhist concept, the karmic seeds, we have many, many karmic seeds ripen. And so there are major karmic seeds and minor karmic seeds, and they each have a duration and a strength associated with them. So when a major karma ripens, for example, we would have a major karma ripen into being born as a human being.
Okay.
That's like a major karma. You're born into a certain realm. The karmic seed has a certain duration, a certain power, and so as long as that karma is in play, then you are living as a human being. When that karma wears out and fades, the karma to be a human being is worn out, and then that's death. Right? So
So it's more the maintenance of human being status than growth, like peak and then decline as a human being.
Yeah, that doesn't relate to negative thoughts versus positive thoughts. It's
I
an
was gonna
interesting
make a
idea.
puberty joke.
Yeah, go for it. You can do
Well,
it.
no, like you know how teenagers and preteens are always so negative
Yeah.
and so mean,
Yeah.
or they can't be, not all of them.
Yeah. Bring
But
him here. He's not gonna come here.
He won't come here.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So, you know, this is how we become enlightened. The way we become enlightened is by thinking a continuous stream of pure virtuous thoughts, which causes the subtle inner body to open its negativities, blockages, and constrictions, so that our body and mind becomes more refined and pure, to the point where we reach enlightenment, to the point where we have a very subtle body and a very subtle mind, and that continues to the experience of enlightenment. So that's the general idea behind it, and it takes extraordinary attempts with these white seeds in two ways. So first of all, it means collecting powerful, virtuous karmic seeds. The first aspect of this thing I'm talking about is the power of white seeds, pure white seeds. The force of pure white seeds is that you have to collect really powerful, good karmas. Like if you're an average person who's not really a serious spiritual practitioner, I mean, you kind of focus on being good. You kind of focus on not getting pissed off at people. You know, you try to help a person here and there, right? But as you get more and more serious in your practice, and you're a more and more dedicated and committed spiritual practitioner, the issue then is between choosing this virtue or that virtue. You know, one is doing virtue a lot of the time. And that turns into, well, should I help run the 3 jewels or should I help run the 108 Lives Project? You know, should I help, you know, that class? Should I help put on that Dharma event, or should I go meditate? You know, so should I go, you know, help this person who needs some counseling, or should I go copy text to distribute in class? So, you know, then you run into the problem of which is a higher virtue, right? And how do I allocate my time, and how do I spend my time so that I'm pursuing the highest possible virtue? Because it takes a huge amount of good karma to become enlightened. And so we've got to stop pursuing the wimpy virtues and really go after the powerful virtues. If we're serious about getting enlightened as quickly as possible, we have to really focus in on what's the most powerful karma and virtue and goodness that we can collect, rather than just sort of lame, wimpy little niceties, right? So that's the idea. So there's this art and science of figuring out what the most powerful karma is, because we don't have time to fool around with the little ones, right? So, and you have to go after them, and you have to start collecting them. You need to start to accumulate those powerful white seeds. So what are the most powerful karmas?
Dharma center.
I mean, it's essentially helping to spread wisdom, right? Helping to spread Dharma, teachings that benefit people, teachings that help people, helping to spread, you know, Dharma. I mean, what's Dharma? Dharma is something that, you know, alleviates suffering and brings positive goodness to people, right? So ultimately one would be furthering highest possible teachings that can lead a person to enlightenment. If you had a choice between spreading, medical knowledge and Dharma knowledge, Buddhism would say Dharma knowledge is more important because, with that you could end countless lifetimes of suffering, But with medical knowledge, you can put a patch on or have a fix for, perhaps part of this lifetime or all of this lifetime. So it's a greater good and a higher purpose to pursue that support of the Dharma. So supporting the Dharma and Dharma teachers is the most powerful thing. Helping people to learn techniques and methods to put an end to their suffering. It's not self-serving. It's not, it's hard for a Dharma teacher to say, "Oh, serve me," and you shouldn't, right? Like, "Oh, the most powerful karma you can collect is to take care of me," right? I mean, it seems a bit self-serving, right? So that's really not the point. The point is that the body of information and the body of knowledge, when presented to other people, suffering beings, can end their suffering. And that's the thing that one is serving. One is serving the transmission of the knowledge that can put an end to infinite suffering in every single living being. So look at that. Yeah. So studying emptiness, of course, is a very powerful goodness, a very powerful white karma. Tonglen meditation, developing compassion, right? And using these Tonglen practices to develop compassion is a very powerful karma. So those are probably the big three, right? Helping to spread wisdom teachings and compassion teachings to end suffering, right? Studying emptiness and ultimate reality, wisdom, and compassion, especially Tonglen as we're talking about it now, right? So all of those things are worked on in private, though, right? It's not like anybody knows you're doing it. So, if you're working on understanding higher reality, if you're working on developing compassion, doing Tonglen practice, nobody else really knows, do they? I mean, it's just something you do in the privacy of your own room or in your own mind. So, these Tonglen practices, as the Kadampas have advocated them, are about just quietly going about the business of changing yourself and changing your mind and changing your life and changing your behavior without anyone really even needing to know about it in an exterior sense, right? Like that. So then the second half of this force is wiping out the old negative karmic seeds, right? And if you know the four forces, then you're familiar with this. It's the four forces which purify negative karma, right? And basically it's keeping your vows, keeping your spiritual journal, right? Keeping track of your good deeds and bad deeds, making sure you don't collect more negative karma, right? So that's the third one. In terms of understanding wisdom and studying wisdom, in the monastery they actually spend something like 12 years studying the perfection of wisdom. It's a small book, it's like 50 pages that they study, and they spend 12 years on these 50 pages. And after 12 years of full-time study on it, along with other topics, then they tell the monks to go out and leave the monastery and to spend 6 months or a year going and collecting some powerful virtue, because they won't be able to understand the subject matter unless they have enough goodness and enough virtue for their mind to change and to function differently. So they actually send them out and they say, go out, find some way to do a lot of virtue and powerful goodness, and when you've done it, then come back, and then you'll be ready, to get into this emptiness, to really get into emptiness and understanding emptiness. And I remember Holy Ken Rinpoche went into a cave and meditated for I don't remember how long. He almost died in the cave, in practicing and preparing to have a clear understanding of emptiness. And so he did a tremendous purification. And then when he finished his retreat, then he understood. When he got out of the cave, he understood it quite well. So the mind has to be able to function properly to understand these things, and to, in a way, embody these things, if you will. So this is the idea of the third point, the force of pure white seeds is our mind is, in an ordinary, normal, afflicted human life, our mind is functioning in a certain way. And it's fairly limited, and it's fairly crude, and it's fairly unattenuated to higher spiritual truths, you could say. It's very difficult for us to resonate with putting everyone else first, for example. You know, it's very difficult for us to resonate with loving everyone and being kind to everyone. It really takes some kind of internal mental shift for that to become comfortable, for that to become natural. And so that's really what we're talking about is collecting the goodness and cleaning the obstacles internally, karmically, energetically, behaviorally, so that the mind and behavior can shift in that way, and it can become kind of a way of being. You know? So, okay, number 4, please say Sunjimpa Gito. What's top?
Power.
All right. Sunjimpa means to rip out, like you rip out the heart. It's a very sort of violent word. So what it means is you know, you're going through your day, you're doing these practices, you're going through the day, and then all of a sudden you notice this thought comes into your mind, which is like, I'm not getting what I want. You know, they're getting what they want, and I'm not getting what I want. You know, it says, when it sneaks up on you, and when you hear that little voice say, I want, you know, rip it out. Smash it, okay? So when the I want comes, then smash it, right? Don't have no mercy, right? So the minute that ugly head rears itself, bash it like whack-a-mole, right? So don't tolerate it, and don't let it continue. It slips up on us very very quietly and very very softly. You know, the sense of they were before me, and that's not okay. You know, they put themselves in front of me, and that's not okay. I want. You know, whenever that slips in, then destroy it. You know, rip it to pieces, rip it out. Right when you catch that. So, and that's practice throughout the day, and you have to get good at it. So. So these are activities that you're going to spend the rest of your life on every day. This is what this LOJONG is saying, right? It's saying, look, these are 5 practices for your entire life. This is what you're going to do every day, all day, with your entire life. And if you did this, you would get enlightened. Right? It's actually very, very succinct and very concise and very profound and very simple, right? You just have to do it. Okay, so number 5. Please say Munlam Gito.
Gito.
Munlam Gito.
Gito.
So Munlam is a prayer. So it's the power of prayer. And so this is at night when you're going to sleep. Right? You had your wake up intention setting, your clarity as to why you're getting out of bed and what you're going to do when you get out of bed. You've had your practice throughout the day of getting used to putting others ahead of ourselves and cherishing others. You know, we've had the awareness of the need to collect powerful white seeds and clean out and destroy negative seeds, right? And then we had the practice of smashing and destroying and ripping the heart out of this sort of self-cherishing attitude of, you know, me, I'm first, you know, they're after me. Okay? I'm more important than them. And so the last one is at the end of the day, when you're going to bed, you know, you close your eyes and you think about however many things you did today. Maybe it was 3 things. You know, maybe there were 3 little attempts today where I actually made efforts to put someone else in front of myself, kicking and screaming with great resistance. You know, saying, no, I don't want to do it, but I'll do it. You know, and at the end of the day, when you're lying down in bed, you say, that was great. That was great. It was great that I did that. That was a great day. You know, 3 times today, you know, I cherished other people. You know, and that's great, and I'm going to continue doing that. Right? So, and you know, and you basically pray to develop bodhicitta. Right? Lojong is what develops compassion, bodhicitta, right? Lojong is a practice for developing a good heart. Good heart meaning loving, kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, right? So, there are two kinds of bodhicitta, right? What are they? Anybody remember the two different types of bodhicitta?
Sugarcane bodhicitta. There's a few different breakdowns. The action and the wish.
Yeah, there's the aspiring bodhicitta or the wishing bodhicitta where you really love the idea of helping people, but you're not quite doing it, right?
That's my understanding of sugarcane.
Yeah.
Hollow in the middle.
Sugarcane, you could say it's sort of like wimpy bodhicitta. Like if it's not too hard, I'll be kind to other people. But it's like the analogy of sugarcane is it doesn't have any strength because it's hollow in the middle, and it's easily crushed. So, like a beginner bodhisattva, they're like, oh, I'm going to be kind to everybody, and then somebody's treating you really sweetly, and you're really kind to them, and then they piss you off, and then you aren't kind to them. Right? So that's the idea of sugarcane bodhicitta. One's capacity isn't that strong, or isn't that great. So kind of like that. Not mature, I guess you would say. Yeah.
That makes it seem more like a test of the will rather than what my very rudimentary understanding of this is that if you truly understand the nature of reality, you're going to have that necessarily that feeling, the feeling of bodhicitta,
Yeah.
right? So wouldn't the weak one just be that you're still not understanding the true nature of reality, and it's not necessarily a matter of willpower?
Well, I would actually say a little differently. I would say because you don't understand the true nature of reality, you then have to use willpower to not misbehave.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if you understood the true, ignorance and wisdom are antipodal. I don't know what the right word is. They're opposites, and both can't exist in the mind simultaneously. So, if wisdom is in the mind at that same moment in time, ignorance can't be in the mind. Misapprehension of reality or misapprehension of the nature of things or how things work. Right? So as long as one has wisdom in one's mind, you're set. Life is good. It's a beautiful way to live and it's a beautiful way to exist. But so many of these teachings and so many of these trainings are about how to get to that state. The normal human being isn't capable of walking around maintaining awareness of wisdom on a kind of continuous, regular basis in the mind. And in fact, every thought is pervaded by ignorance, not understanding wisdom more or less. So that's why the rest of this is important. The rest of this is because our lives and because our thoughts are so pervaded by ignorance, we need to apply many other antidotes, many other tools and means to combat that and fight that. And it is really a question of intellect and effort and will and rehabilitation. It's a lifetime of rehabilitation. If a person came in with great wisdom, right, and great love, there would be much less work for them to do, right, in this life. But they've done the work in countless past lives also. So, looking at a normal human being, if there is such a thing, in the human realm, a normal human being puts themselves first, tries to get ahead at other people's expense, engages in negativity and aggression and violence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of ordinary behavior in a way. So, all of those negativities are the things we're trying to re-habituate, right, into virtue and goodness and love and compassion and kindness. And that's what these teachings are about. So these teachings, and that's what these 5 powers are. These 5 powers say is, look, as you go through your day, retrain yourself to think all the goodness in the world and my enlightenment comes from serving others and thinking of others and being kind to others and loving others. And all the suffering of the world and all the problems of the world come from putting myself first. And the only way to get enlightened is by putting goodness out continuously, essentially. You know, thinking virtuous thoughts continuously and engaging in virtuous behavior continuously. You know, if one were not completely virtuous all the time, how would you avoid collecting negative seeds, right? I mean, it's just implicit in that. If you're not virtuous, you're either neutral or negative. So, being neutral is not enough to get enlightened. So, you know, you're either going for negativity or you're going for virtue, and it's one or the other. And so, you know, if you're going to get enlightened, there's no negativity. No negativity exists in an enlightened state. So, you know, this is lojong. This is it. This is like, how do you go through your day, engaging in goodness continuously? And the advice is very clear and very direct and very simple. It's put other people first, and then you'll be doing virtue all the time. It's kind of a simple rule of thumb. It's not, you know, we don't need any complex heuristics and, you know, sophisticated algorithm or anything else to figure out how to do this. It's a very simple rule of thumb. Put everyone else first. Not complicated, right? Hard to do. All right. So we started talking about two kinds of bodhicitta. The type where you pray to be, or you aspire to have compassion and help all beings, and where you do it, right? You're actually engaging in doing it, you know. So when you're lying there in bed at night, you can think, you know, I pray to be able to help every living being. You know, may I have love and compassion in my heart for every living being. May I be able to serve every living being, right? So you can think, look, maybe I'll be famous or maybe I won't be famous in this life. You know, maybe I'll be a successful business person or maybe I won't in this life. Maybe I'll have a lot of money or maybe I won't. You know, maybe I'll be loved or maybe I won't. Oh, you can go on and on and on, right? But wouldn't it be an amazing thing if I could just bring one person to the end of suffering? If I could just, you know, if my life succeeded in bringing one person to the end of all suffering, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? You know. And so it's praying like that. You know, as you're lying in bed at the end of the day, it's just, you know, praying to have bodhicitta and praying to be able to, you know, achieve the ultimate accomplishment of this life, which is ending someone's suffering. You know, I mean, would you rather, you know, have a life of flashy cars, or would you rather have, you know, one person never suffer again for infinite time? You know? So that's the idea. So when you're lying there at the end of the day, praying that we can do that, praying that you can see emptiness directly. You know, may I see emptiness directly. May I develop love and compassion in my heart. So, and it's very important to see emptiness, because when the day that you do it, you confirm that everything that you studied is true and everything that you've heard is true. You know, you meet the Dharmakaya of the Buddha. You know, you meet you know, you experience the mind of an enlightened being. You see your own future lives, right? You know that all of these are valid perceptions. So you see your own enlightenment, right? So you know that everything you've heard is true. So after that, you know, what are you worried about? I mean, you know when you're going to get enlightened. You know when. You know. You know the nature of ultimate reality, which is different than the reality you're living in. And you don't really need anything after that. So you don't really have to live according to the opinions and vicissitudes of the people around you. You know, people could say, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do the other. You know for a fact what reality is, right? So you reach a state of total fearlessness, really, and ultimate knowledge, and it informs your life. So, you know, you want to get to a state where that happens, basically. You know, you want to reach a place where you are that kind of being, where you're fearless and you are informed by ultimate knowledge, you know, and you can live in accordance with that. So, so when you go to bed at night, that's the idea. When you lie down, that's the fifth, the power of prayer. The fifth one is that, you know, you pray that you'll be able to save people from dying, save people from suffering. You pray that you'll be able to experience ultimate reality, see emptiness, and dedicating all the efforts of the day to those two goals, right? So to regular and ultimate bodhicitta. So those are the 5 powers and the 5 ways to spend your day and to spend your life. And so it's a perfect Kadampa practice in that nobody ever knows you're doing it, and it's internal, right? You get happier. People externally, people see that you're happier, you're healthier, you know, you look good, you're vibrant, but, you know, they don't know what you're doing inside, right? They're not quite sure what's going on, and they don't need to know, and they shouldn't know. It's not necessary, right? So, all right. So that whole thing, those 5 powers are all wrapped up in this one line of the Lojong. It says, the brief essentials of the instruction are combined within the 5 powers. And so that's it. So that's why you need commentary and instruction on Lojong. These are sort of like little spiritual keys. You know, it's the kind of thing where your teacher instructed you for a decade, you know, and then he gave you like a little pith saying, he or she gave you a little pith saying to remember the 10 years of instruction, you know. It says, you know, they'll say, you know, that the essentials of the instruction are combined within the 5 powers. But you got to know the whole teaching on the 5 powers, everything that's associated with it. And so that's why Lojong is a little tricky, and that's why people somehow get into this mystical woo-woo space, you know, because they hear a phrase and they just get it totally wrong, and they kind of run with it because it's fun, I suppose you could say. So that's a lifetime of practice. And then he has 2 more lines that he provides. He says, in the great way, these same 5 are the advices for sending your mind. Cherish the act. In the great way, these same 5 are the advices for sending your mind. Cherish the act. Okay, and so that's all. He doesn't tell you anything else, right? So you know, if you had received instruction in this, they would be little triggers to remember the instruction and remember all the elaboration. So the great way means Mahayana, and so then he goes into Poa and teaching Poa, hidden instructions for real Poa. So I think let's take a break here and then come back and we'll go into the Poa material after that. Okay. We'll learn. In fact,